What's up, guys? It's Nick with Program Practical, joining you from my new office. I don't remember if I really shared it with you guys. So I said, I think in my video before I left Big Nerd Ranch, we had moved. This is my lovely office with my partial whiteboards up. I'm eventually going to expand that out, probably about another 4 panels. Yeah, so here's my office. So I wanted to come to you guys today. It's going to be a series of videos that I'm kicking off. And what I got is the Big Nerd Ranch Advanced iOS Programming book. I'm not going through the exercises in the book. I highly, highly encourage you guys to go take the training. They keep it updated too. So yeah, I just highly recommend anybody, if you're into iOS, want to get your skills up, go to the training, get more. What I'm going to be doing is actually in the back of each chapter, if you've ever read a Big Nerd Ranch book, which I have 4 sitting right next to me on my desk, not counting the big one here. At the end of each chapter, they put challenges in. They kind of like help verify you actually understood kind of what you just did. Just helps you dive in. Mainly too, what I wanted to do is go into how to learn this stuff, right? So I think especially as a junior or even mid, there's a big tendency to look for blogs, Stack Overflow, stuff like that, and those can help you in a bind. But what do the people like at Big Nerd Ranch do? What do people like myself when you're trying to learn ARKit when it just comes out and there's not blog posts on ARKit? How do you get over those hurdles? And what can you do? And the short answer to that, of course, is just read Apple's documentation. But I think especially as a new person, it's a little difficult to try and figure out how to read the documentation, right? Because it's very formalized. Some of it's badly documented, some of it's outdated, and then what do you do from there? So that's what I'm going to kind of focus on in these challenges as we go through and kind of solve these extra parts in this book. We're going to focus on actually like how does one solve these problems when they don't have the knowledge or they need a refresher, right? Because there's so many systems. You're not going to remember all of Apple's documentation all the time. You're going to need refreshers when you jump back into it, right? I haven't done ARKit in a few months, so when I go to do ARKit again, I'm going to forget and I'm going to need a refresher to help bring it back. And I think that can be extremely important. So without further delay, let's jump into this first problem, kind of show you guys what we're dealing with and what we got going on there. So let me get the screen recording up. All right, and we got the screen recording up. So this is the World Totter app. Again, I'm not going to go into the projects themselves. First off, because if I went through them, once again, I really want to encourage you guys to go through the training. But secondly, this is just going through and just like writing the information in that they tell you to put in. You're not really showing that you've learned anything. And I think the challenges are more interesting in the back. So here's World Totter. Let me go ahead and get this loaded up on a phone. We'll just throw it on the iPhone 8 simulator real quick. I'll bring it over here. Also, I need to look into if I can reset this default. It always defaults to the 8 Plus. So this is it. You see it's not really doing much. There's this guy here. And what's actually the point of this was to actually build in a custom transition. So you'll see that it kind of goes back and then moves over. It's not your standard transition, right? It's actually custom. That was the whole point of World Totter. And this app's actually used in the second chapter. Unslow those. It's used in the second chapter to manually add in this kind of transition phase. So you can just use your finger to swipe like that. So that was the second chapter. The first chapter was just implementing the custom transition. So in the first challenge, we are going to localize the transition. So what do I mean by that? So we're going to set it up on here. We're going to go to settings. So we're going to treat this with a right to left language like Hebrew or Arabic, which I did not realize how different they were, but it's actually really kind of cool. So this is great to do on a simulator, because when you're in a simulator, if you go up to the hardware tab, you can reset all content, so you can just change the language and then just blast it away later. So we're going to do Hebrew. All right. And I'll reboot this phone in Hebrew, which is super cool. And it's just your simulator, right? So we can launch things up in the iPhone X one. But yeah, so this is the right to left. Literally everything is backwards. Even these icons, this really messed with me when I first saw this. It's just so different. However, that's right. And the apps are actually to the other side. If we go into World Totter though, you'll notice, this is my old app. Sorry. Let me rerun this. I was like, it's actually working. That's really weird. Oh, that's not the one we wanted. This is the one we want. It's not, it said it ran, but here we go. Okay, something weird's happening. We're just gonna delete this bad boy. I'm so confused with that. Right to left. There we go. Yeah, we're gonna launch that. Actually, I may need to do a clean build on it. Stop. It's gonna clean, because I don't have any localization for Hebrew, so it should not be translating to Hebrew, because it doesn't automatically translate, right? That'd be dangerous for Apple just to automatically translate your app. There it is. All right, so as you see, it's normally this way and that way, but as you saw before with the Hebrew, it actually properly switched these, because in other apps this will still be your primary, and actually it goes right to left. It's like you're looking at your app in a mirror with a different language. So the first challenge is to localize this translation, so it actually does that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new file, and we're going to make it a markdown file. And Apple's really awesome. They're like, oh, you don't have a README file. This is probably your README. And you can say, yep. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but they actually do beautiful markdown support inside of their stuff. So let's see. Okay, so we're going to localize the transition. We can add a description later, but yeah, so this is what we're going to do first. We're going to localize the transition. So that's going to actually bring it in. So the first thing I would have to look at is how do I localize anything? So I use a tool called Dash, which is essentially is just a document search tool. You see I have Apple, Vim, Android, and some LLDB stuff preloaded in here. And it just saves the documentation for offline use, makes it super easy to query. It's a really nice tool that I enjoy. So the first thing I might do is look up localization, or in this case, like I'm kind of interested, what about that UI tab bar, right? I can go into my storyboard, and I don't really see any way of getting localization. I might even come up to help here and type in localize. And there's some walking options, but not really anything else. So what I'm going to do is go to the documentation, and I'm going to look up the UI tab bar, kind of see what it has to say, see if there's something that, that tab bar is something Apple gives me, so I feel like I should localize automatically. So I'm going to come through here and just kind of look around, and right there, in internationalization. So in order to internationalize the tab bar, I must provide localized strings. So if I want it to go left to right, I need to provide strings that will allow that to happen. Which is okay. So that's cool. So for more information, there's a whole localization guide we can jump to. And this is nice. So the one thing about Apple documentation is there's actually some stuff here that we don't get to see. So what I might do is, that's just a bookmark, open that page in a URL, because you get this right here that you normally don't get to see. So I'm going to just do a quick look and look at localize your app, right? So there's internationalize your app, but this one, I mean, that's a lot of stuff going on. Frankly, this one looks easier, plus what it has to say, right? So export, import, localization data, that kind of stuff. So let's see what this has to say. So this talks about language files, stuff like that. I might do a quick glance here, and sure enough, supporting right to left languages. So this is actually a really cool part about how they automatically do a lot of things for you, but there's certain things they won't do for you. So video controls, timeline indicators, images, unless they communicate a sense of direction, clocks, music notes, sheets, and graphs. So these are things they will not touch for us, but a lot of other things they will. So that's good to know. And as we saw in this prior documentation, it says that we need to provide localization strings. So as we see, we already have some localization for English and Spanish. So to add localization, we'll go up to our info. Oh, I was in build settings. Info. Here we go. Oh, and localization. So we'll do is we'll say we want another localization, and we're going for Hebrew. Specifically what we want. We'll just leave all those checked. And there we go. So if we pop this open now, we'll see, sure enough, we now have a Hebrews file in here, which automatically generates these strings to kind of say this is what is going on. What's that? It says 100, but this one says dots. Interesting. So I'm going to use Google Translate real quick and just convert these over real fast. Now this obviously is not what you'd want to do, right? Because this language is very different than English. So this I am more than likely butchering. I am more likely highly butchering what this is supposed to say, except for map. Maybe map will be fine. You'd want to use like a localization service or something like that. But we're just trying. I mean, this is just an example project. We really don't care. We don't care about the result, right? This is not something where you're going to publish to the App Store. We're just trying to make it a little. I did it again. We're trying to make it a little more authentic. Oops. Let's grab that. All right. So now we provided our strings. We're going to fire that up again. And take a look. All right, sure enough, look at that. The convert's on that side, where for the English version, the convert was on this side. And the animation automatically is updated to kind of show that. Now, this works great, and this actually solves our first problem, right? Localize the slide transition. However, we have this translation, right? We have, or this interaction, I should say, sorry, the slide interaction, where it's actually watching my finger drag across the string and going across. And unfortunately, it's doing it like that too. So and this is chapter 2, but the fact of the matter is, as of right now, our app does not support localization completely. You'd be very confused as you're trying to get to the other one, go, hey, this isn't working, and then accidentally slide in this way and go, whoa, wait a second. So we need to get this part localized as well. This one's a bit more hairy because, as we read in the documentation, the graph coordinates are not do not change. However, what controls this is exactly that, graph coordinates. Let's say where's the slide coming from, where are we going, what's the thing selected. So our selected indexes are reversed, but our dx, or the translation, is not reversed. So we'll need to make this a little content aware and deal with localization on that. So what we'll probably do is open this and look at localize. Let's see, hang on, let me just type in Apple real quick. So what about user location? So localized, we definitely have some of that. What I might do is, so we are looking at our application. Variable. So let's see. What we want to do is be able to check where our location is. Now, first off, we do set a location direction up here, left to right. That's not going to work. We need to be a little bit more dynamic than that. So we'll actually want to know where it's coming from. So application, we can go to UI application. So that's the actual, if we look at our documentation, this is the centralized point of control and coordination for apps running on iOS. Seems like a pretty good place to start. We can grab shared and then see if there's any kind of localization in here. So there's not. So we grab our shared application. Interface, there it is. So this, I just kind of guessed going off this UI, user interface layout direction. And let's see, we'll double check that, but it should be of this type, and sure enough, returns the layout direction of the user interface. So now we'll dynamically set that to be, exactly what the OS says. Let's save that real quick. So like I said before, this part of the knowledge comes from just typing this code out, but I know what this is grabbing is it's grabbing the transition or translation, so the actual movement of the graph, and this is grabbing selective index. In fact, what we can do is put in a breakpoint here, and we'll ignore the force 2 times. Okay. Yeah, it's going to the right phone. I'm just gonna get this one out of the way. All right, so this will break as we start going through. There it is. So we can look down at the bottom here and see that we have a dx of -32 and a tab count of 2, selected index of 1. So if we open our phone again. So I was dragging this way. That would make sense, right? This is 0. So for me to move the screen this way, I'm going negative. However, I'm actually trying to go positive, right? I'm trying to go this way. Now we go and skip this real quick. So if I go this way, this will still break, and you'll see my dx now is much higher, and still negative, oddly enough. I wonder how I did that. -400. Let me skip that. -300. Ooh, I actually made the full jump somehow. Hang on. Let me just do this real quick. Get that back to a location we're used to. There it is. Okay. Oh, there we go. dx is, I mean, it's a really small number, but it's a positive number, right? Which is doing exactly what it theoretically is supposed to. Problem is when we get down to here. So what happens is we see we have a positive number, right? and then our selected index is not greater than 0. So this doesn't get called. It doesn't decrement or increment. This won't call because it's greater than 0, or yeah, it's greater than 0, and the selective index is less than the tab count, but none of these get counted, so currently interactive goes to false. So this is important because essentially at the begin of our state, what we're saying is, hey, we want to move to the next selected tab. On the change, it tells it to, okay, update it by this amount. Cancel tells it to go back, or, well, ended. And then when it ends, it will check to see if you're over halfway across the screen. If you are, then it allows the full thing to happen. If it doesn't, it sends it back. So it's important that this initial one tells it exactly where it's going. So in this case, we care that if we are going, if dx is positive and it's 0 or greater, or if it's greater than 0, then it needs to go that way. So the main thing would be, okay, so like we said, the selective indexes have flipped. iOS does do that. So our selected index now, so let me grab my simulator. So this is 0, this is 1, right? On a normal, oh, come on. On a normal one, this is 0, this is 1. However, our graphs, the x and y coordinates, or sorry, the x and y coordinates have not changed. So what that means is we are checking for a different coordination, right? We're expecting it to go the other way, and that's why if we, simulator, there we go. That's why if we, let's see, just ignore all of this from happening, send it through. That's why we go this way. Oh, I've broken it. That happens too. That's why this is doing it this way, because it's like, oh, you want me to change it the other way? And it's like, no, you're just backwards. So we're going to fix that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this just x for now. And we'll come down here and we'll say let dx equal, and then we're going to check that location, right? So we'll say the UI application shared, and what was it again? It was interface. Okay, so if that is left to right, so if it's what we expect, what we're used to, right, then we'll just return x the way it is. However, if it's not, we're going to invert x and flip it around, and that should, in theory, fix it. But there's a slight problem we'll get to in a second. So we'll fire this up, and we'll try this. And that's not doing anything, but that is. Hey, look at that. All right. And then when we try and come back, though, oh, hang on. Okay, so as you see at the bottom, you can see those numbers kicking up. That means this location event is firing, but is being canceled. So we need to figure out why. Let's move this down a little bit. Oh, that's my terminal. And we'll see what happens. Oh, that's right. Hang on. Okay, and that's right, sorry. This event will not fire multiple times because it's only in the begin call. So it's at the beginning of your gesture. So it only happened here. So here's the important thing. That started at 0. As you can see, though, we have a negative 0. And that's because of this inverting that we're doing, where it shouldn't be doing it if it's x. Now we could, there could be a couple ways we could do this, right? We could come in here and say, and x does not equal 0, right? And just ignore it if it equals 0. We hand it back to them. Another way we could do it is simply just pop that guy in there, right? And say if it's less than or greater to 0, because it's actually one of the issues, right? So when we're going this other way, this is now 0. And as you saw before down here, we have this less than or equal to 0 because of the way we had to deal with it when it was going in one direction. I would say this would probably be better just because we still need to be checking for 0 up there and not just ignoring it because it's negative. So I'm just going to pull this out, get that going, reload this. And we're going to see how this works. Okay, so we do this drag and that gets to load in the way it's supposed to, and we'll try and go back now, and sure enough, there it is. So we now have those transitions working exactly the way we planned to, and we just want to make sure that it runs on an English standard phone. Come on. This phone's so hard to grab. If you grab like the notch, it doesn't always do anything because it's supposed to be able to do that. So we'll make sure those animations look good. And then we'll, yeah, there's that. And there's that one. Yeah, nice. So we got them working on both languages, whether it be Hebrew or English. So it works now both right to left translation. So as you saw, it's actually really not hard to support right to left. Can be as simple as just adding in a localization text file for right to left language. But if you are doing any kind of custom animations, if you're doing any kind of points where you are calculating your own transition, which this one we are, right? We are calculating the x coordinate as we move this. The x coordinates on graphs, stuff like that, y coordinates, they do not flip, they stay the same. So you have to step in and manually intervene to add in your own translation. So that's just something to make sure that you're aware of, because it will get you, right? And that's why you should always be, especially if you offer a translation, especially one that does a right to left or a left to right, yes, right to left language. You should definitely be testing that out by your, on your own. Like, don't trust on CI or anything like that. Definitely test it on your own to make sure it looks right and it behaves the way you intend it to behave, just so it doesn't mess with you. So yeah, that's the first challenge, local slide transitions. It's been almost 30 minutes now, so we're going to wrap this up. Next time we'll get to the second challenge in this, which is a custom modal transition animation. But yeah, so guys, thank you so much for watching. This is Nick with Program Practical, and you know what? I'll catch you guys next time.